14:12 local time. Western Pacific, the sea was calm. Blue water stretched to the horizon as a US Navy guided missile destroyer cut through international waters on a routine patrol. Radar rotated, sonar listened. The ship's posture was relaxed, professional, alert, but unhurried. This wasn't a show of force mission, it was presence, and presence in the Western Pacific is often enough to invite attention. The first contact, 14:14 hours. A radar technician leaned forward. "Sir, long-range air contact, high altitude, fast." The tactical display painted a clean, unmistakable track. Large radar cross-section, long straight wings, speed increasing. The air defense officer didn't hesitate. "That's a bomber." The captain stepped closer. "Nationality?" The technician paused, then answered carefully. "Likely PLA Air Force." The room went quiet. The bomber identified. Within moments, the profile became clearer. A Chinese H-6 bomber, a long-range aircraft specifically modified for anti-ship strike missions, capable of carrying cruise missiles designed to target surface combatants far beyond the horizon. This wasn't reconnaissance. This was a platform built to sink ships. Unverified mission context. According to unverified OSINT assessments, the bomber sortie may have been scheduled in response to increased US naval activity in the region. Analysts believe the flight could have been authorized as a demonstration of strike reach rather than a combat mission. But intentions at altitude are hard to read, and intentions can change quickly. The approach begins. 14:18 hours. The bomber altered course. It wasn't passing by. It was turning toward the destroyer. Distance closed steadily, from 120 miles to 90 to 70. The ship's sensors tracked every movement. No fire control radar yet, no weapons visible, but the geometry mattered. The bomber was lining up on an axis consistent with an anti-ship attack profile. What a simulated strike looks like. Military planners know this pattern well. A bomber doesn't need to fire a missile to practice killing a ship. It needs to descend to launch altitude, align its approach vector, stabilize speed, simulate targeting, and then pull away. That's all it takes. And that's exactly what the H-6 began to do. The ship responds quietly. 14:22 hours. The captain gave a calm order. Set condition yellow. Track only. No illumination. The destroyer didn't maneuver aggressively. It didn't light up the bomber with radar. It didn't broadcast warnings. Instead, it watched, because firing first, or even signaling, would reveal too much. Unverified. Electronic signals detected. Unverified sensor analysis later suggested brief electronic emissions from the bomber, not a full targeting radar lock, but probing signals, consistent with simulated missile queuing. This was never officially confirmed, but onboard systems noticed and logged. The bomber descends, 14:25 hours. Altitude dropped. The bomber transitioned from cruise to a lower flight level, still high enough to remain safe, but low enough to mimic a missile launch window. Its nose stabilized, speed steadied, the approach angle tightened. The destroyer's combat information center grew tense. The air defense officer spoke quietly. "That's textbook." The captain nodded. "They want us to react." The radio challenge. The destroyer transmitted a standard warning. "Unidentified military aircraft. You are approaching a US Navy warship operating lawfully in international waters. Request you alter course immediately." The response came seconds later. "US naval vessel. This is Chinese military aircraft conducting routine training. Maintain safe distance." Routine. Training. Words chosen carefully. The simulated strike run, 14:27 hours. The bomber crossed a critical threshold, inside strike simulation range. From this distance, in real combat, missiles would already be airborne. The bomber's sensors tracked the ship. The ship tracked back. No one blinked. This was the moment. Would the bomber commit to the full profile, or would it pull away? Unverified. Fire control moment. Unverified reports later claimed a brief fire control radar illumination may have occurred, lasting only seconds. Too short to confirm. Too short to trigger automatic responses, but long enough to be noticed. If true, that crossed a serious line. The captain's decision. The captain didn't raise his voice. Log everything. Weapons remained cold. Missiles stayed sealed. But something else changed. A message went out, not to the bomber, but to assets beyond the horizon. 14:31 hours. The new contacts resolved quickly. Fast, high altitude, closing hard. 2 US fighter aircraft, their exact type never officially confirmed, entered the picture from the northeast. Their radar emissions unmistakable and deliberate. This was no surprise intercept. It was a statement. The Chinese H-6's warning receivers lit up. Inside the bomber's cockpit, the crew stiffened. They had expected attention. They had not expected company. The intercept geometry. The fighters descended in a controlled arc, positioning themselves between the bomber and the destroyer. Perfect spacing, perfect timing, no aggression. aggressive turns, no flares, no radio theatrics, just presence. The lead US pilot keyed the mic. Chinese military aircraft, you are approaching US naval forces. Alter course immediately. The response came back measured. US aircraft, Chinese Air Force conducting routine training. Maintain safe distance. Routine, training. But the geometry said otherwise. Unverified, escort expectation. Unverified OSINT chatter later suggested the bomber crew may have expected a shadow escort rather than a blocking intercept. If true, that miscalculation changed the encounter's tone in seconds. The fighters weren't watching. They were controlling space. The bomber hesitates. 14:34 hours. The H-6 held altitude, held speed, held heading. For a long, dangerous moment, no one moved. Below, the destroyer stayed on course, calm, steady, weapons still cold. The captain spoke quietly to his team. They wanted a reaction. They're getting a boundary. The second signal, unverified. Then something subtle occurred. Sensors aboard the destroyer registered a brief electronic spike from the bomber. Not a lock, not a cue, but a probing emission consistent with simulated missile targeting. This has never been officially acknowledged, but it was noticed and logged. The American response tightens. The US fighters closed distance, not to threaten, but to clarify. Their positioning left no ambiguity. Any further approach would require flying through them. The lead pilot transmitted again. This is your final warning. You are simulating an unsafe attack profile. Depart the area now. Silence followed. Not radio silence. Decision silence. The turn 14:36 hours. The H-6's wings adjusted. Its nose drifted east, slowly, deliberately. The bomber wasn't retreating in panic. It was disengaging. The fighters mirrored the movement, maintaining position just off the bomber's wing line. Escort out, not chase. Unverified, command override. Later, unverified intelligence summaries suggested higher-level command may have instructed the bomber crew to disengage once US fighters arrived, a signal that the exercise had achieved its goal and pushing further risked escalation. If true, the timing was razor-thin. The destroyer holds course. Below, the US warship never changed heading, never illuminated radar, never launched aircraft. That restraint mattered. It framed the encounter not as a clash, but as a measured correction. A reminder. The final pass, 14:39 hours. As the bomber withdrew, it made one final wide arc, not toward the ship, but away from it. The fighters stayed with it to the edge of the engagement area, then climbed. The H-6 accelerated eastward, engines flaring as it departed. The skies slowly returned to normal. Aftermath at sea. Aboard the destroyer, the tension ebbed. Condition yellow remained for several minutes as systems confirmed the airspace was clear. The captain gathered his officers. This will be reviewed at every level, he said. All data preserved. Every radar sweep, every electronic blip, every radio call, because nothing about this incident was accidental. Why this matters? Simulated strike runs are not games. They are rehearsals. They test reaction time, command, discipline, escalation thresholds, and resolve. This one tested all four, and the response sent a message far beyond the horizon. Unverified analyst assessments later suggested Chinese planners gained valuable data, but not the kind they expected. They saw no panic, no overreaction, no exposure of sensitive systems. Instead, they saw control, and control complicates planning. No missiles flew, no shots were fired, no press conference detailed the approach angles or distances. But among professionals, the takeaway was blunt. The simulated strike went too far, and the response ensured it wouldn't be repeated the same way. In modern warfare, the loudest message is often sent without sound. A bomber can simulate an attack, but when the target doesn't flinch and help arrives silently from beyond the horizon, the lesson becomes clear. Some tests don't reveal weakness, they reveal limits. And on that day in the Western Pacific, a line was drawn, not with fire, but with presence.